How's it going, loyal Gear Bunker readers? I've got an update on the FJ Cruiser that we just picked up last month, and I'm going to go over a product from 4x4 sPOD and kind of show you how it integrates all the lights that came on this thing. So when we picked this thing up, it was already pretty outfitted with lights. This is a Baja Designs 50-inch curved light bar up there, which is the primary source of light when we're off-roading. We've got a pair of ditch lights here, also from Baja Designs, on the cowls. We also have them down here in the fog lights as well. And we even have another pair, making 3 pairs total, of rear fog lights. Or not rear fog lights, but just rear lights. So as we were looking this thing over, we realized that none of them were wired up. None of them were connected to anything. So rather than running a bunch of wires to switches and relays and fuses inside the cab, we decided to go with an sPOD. And if any of you guys remember when I was building the Tundra, I did exactly the same thing here. And this is the previous iteration of the 4x4 sPOD. And what it does is it provides you with an area to wire your 12-volt accessories. So all this is like a distribution panel. You're just connecting your positive and negative to the battery, and then it electrifies this board, and it gives you proper relays for all 6 switches, as well as hookups just to connect the positive and negative to each switch. And then you run one wire from the source pod through the firewall and into the vehicle, and you're left with these switches right here. So for me, I've got floodlights, spotlight, windshield lights, scene lights, air compressor, and a dedicated outlet for our fridge. So as I was getting ready to do the FJ, I went back to 4x4 sPOD and took a look at what they had, and they've constantly improved their products over the years, and now they have an even smaller footprint type source pod, and it's called the Bantam. And this is it right here. So it basically does the same thing, but it's much smaller. And you're just connecting the positive and negative to the battery, which powers this. And this actually is an 8-channel unit, whereas the one in the Tundra is a 6-channel unit. So what you're left with here is solid state electronics, so you don't need relays or fuses. You just have the positive and negative going to the battery, and now you have 4 switched outlets on this side and 4 switched outlets on this side. And then they've even streamlined the cable that runs inside to the cab, and it looks just like a telephone cable, like a Cat 5 cable. So that's all that's running into the cab to where the switches are. And as you can see what I have hooked up here in the various circuits. I've got fog lights, ditch lights, 50-inch light bar, work lights, the rear lights, a dedicated circuit for the fridge, air compressor, and front locker. So this cable runs through the firewall, and I opted for the touchscreen version of the Bantam and decided to mount everything right here. So as you touch the touchscreen, it powers up, and you have all the various switches that you can turn on. See, the fog lights are on, ditch lights, driving light. I don't have the work lights hooked up yet. And then the rear lights, fridge, air compressor, front locker. Not all of those are hooked up yet. So as I'm going through, I just have an easy wiring job of bringing the positive and negative of any of the accessories up to the Bantam and just hooking them to the corresponding switches. So with the FJ being a much smaller vehicle, we decided that the Bantam, although a little more expensive than the original SPOD, with a small 8-channel touchscreen here, it just has a very small footprint. It's not taking up any space in the FJ. Also the small footprint in the engine compartment, because I plan on adding the compressor, an air tank, and a dual battery setup. So it's going to be pretty crowded in there. This also offers a couple extra features that the older switches don't, and that's the battery status, the battery indicator right here, and also the temperature of the motherboard inside the Bantam itself. So you can monitor all that stuff, and you have a lot more leeway with how you set up these switches. So I've got it set up where if I touch the 50-inch driving light, it turns on also the ditch lights and front fog lights, because more often than not, those are all going to be used together anyways. So you can kind of set a master switch to set up or to turn on and toggle various other lights, where I would just use the work lights, you know, whenever I need. And also you got the ability to dim them, so you can scroll up and down and dim the work lights. And the work lights are going to be mounted up here along the Baja rack. So I'm going to have a couple work lights on the side, a couple on the back, and a couple on the other side. And those will just provide work light around the vehicle as we're camping. So having the dimmer switch is nice to be able to turn those down as needed. But that is electrical wiring made easy. All right, we're outside in the FJ. It's dark enough where I can start testing some of these lights. I'm going to turn the camera around and let you know what I'm seeing here. All right, what we have there are just the regular headlights. Now we're going to turn on the amber front fog lights, the ditch lights, and then finally the 50-inch driving light. So as you can see, there's a huge difference between the headlights and what I've got on board here. See, I'm turning the headlights on and off and you can barely even tell. So headlights, and then the 50, the ditch lights, and the front fog lights. So quite an improvement, and you can see the touch screen here. And I've got them keyed, so when I turn the 50-inch driving light on and off, both the 50, the ditch light, and the front fog lights come on. So, not too shabby. I'm pretty impressed with the amount of light that the Baja Design lights put out, and how easy the 4x4 sPOD Bantam works. It's a nice clean setup, and really kind of cranks out the light.